Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to a Zombicide video. This one's a little bit different. So this isn't an actual unboxing, but during my last unboxing of all the White Death stuff, because they switched to the new 2.0 system for the spawn cards. So all the spawn cards now have the same exact numbers on each one, and they'll say like Walker, and then it tells you what number you summon at each range: red, orange, yellow, blue. When then you get Brute or Runner, however it would be. And then the Abominations and Necromancers are just their own single card. Let's say one of the two, then you draw from the deck of them if you have any. So if you only have the core game, you only have the one. But if you have multiple cores, expansion, kickstarts, you have a bunch of them, then you draw from that pile or whoever you wanted to fight in that match. So very cool. So they have replacements for all of them. But I was curious what the breakdown, I'm going to switch to this next slide, was what the spawns were for each one. Because I think some people, like if they have multiple versions of the games, they might want to switch to White Death. Because I think personally that's a little bit easier. Just because, again, you look at the card, it's going to immediately be like, oh, this is a Walker, this is a Runner, this is a Brute, or Abomination. You know exactly which of the four you're summoning at any given moment. Then you just have to look at what number it is at what color you're at. Versus all the other ones, you draw a card, it could be, the red could be, oh, summoning 3 Brutes, then the orange could be 7 Walkers, then you can have 3 Walkers in yellow, and then like 2 Runners in blue, or any different combination. They have all different numbers. So it makes it kind of like you have to take a quicker second. You have to take a little bit more time to look at it. It's not that it's necessarily bad. You can still do it. It definitely works. But I wanted to kind of compare all 3 sets just to kind of see what the breakdown was and see if like the breakdown on the numbers in the older sets works out to about the same equivalent as White Death with the new one. One other thing to take note with the White Death is in the standard cards, they have easy and hard. So they have 14 cards that have the exact same numbers on every card. And then hard, they have 14 all have the exact same numbers, except they go up a little bit from the easy. Whereas in the older ones, Black Plague and Green Horde, there are different different numbers and summons on every single card. So you're getting them all over the place. But if we look at comparing the 3 of them, so the first 2 both had 54. The new one now has 56. So it actually has 2 more cards. So in the grand total, if you're going through the entire deck of you're playing through all of them, every single card, you just grab the entire stack, you're going to be playing about the same amount. Then we can also see Necromancers in the White Death went up by 3, so you're going to summon Necromancers a little bit more, but they all have a special summoning card, Zombicide, Double Spawn, or Enter the Horde, at about the same ratio. Enter the Horde should actually be 9. I typed 8 in there by accident, so that should have been a 9. And they'll have 4 extra activation cards, 2 Walkers, 1 Brute, 1 Runner. So those bottom ones all kind of stay the same. We notice the one difference there in White Death is you have 6 Abominations. So they took the Abominations out of the standard summoning. So they're going to be their own 6 cards that you'll find throughout the game, rather than finding them mixed in with the other cards. And just another thing to also note is if you're going to do easy hard, this is the difference. If you mix the easy and hard together with everything else, then it keeps the same amount. But if you only want just the easy or just the hard, you're going to have 14 less cards. So that means as you play through the game, you're going to run out of the deck 14 cards earlier, have to reshuffle everything, which means you're going to potentially run into the Abominations, Necromancers, Zombicides, and extra activations 14 cards quicker again. So there is one thing you could do. You could always stack the deck a little bit, by taking like roughly half of each of the piles. Take easy deck, take 3 Abominations, take 4 Necromancers, 4 Zombicides, and 2 extra activations. Randomly shuffle them into the easy pile, then randomly shuffle the other half into hard, and then stack one on top of the other. So then the game gets harder as you go along. That is a possibility you could do as well. The only downside to doing that, I would say, by mixing the hard ones I guess, kind of in just later is because by the time you get to them, you probably won't be at blue level anymore, and you most likely won't be at yellow anymore either. So basically, you're just getting the later half of the cards. But that's, again, that's up to you. So this video is going to be a little bit long because I wanted to go through and kind of break down all these things. So we're going to look at White Death. So this is what the White Death cards look like. It's all, the easy cards are going to be 8, 6, 4, and 2. So I broke them down in each spot. So all the walkers are going to summon like that. All the runners are going to summon, and all the brutes. Now, I put the ×3 on there just to show, like, because in the other ones, there are 36 of each regular spawn cards. So I said, if you took these 6 cards and you times them by 3, like, what would the equivalent number of that of each summoning be? If you're comparing them to, like, just the full set of 36. So, like, again, it's not how the game exactly works for this, because you're going to go through the entire deck and reshuffle them. Because I have 6, you have 6 of one, 4 of the other, and 4 of the other. That's why you get your 14. But if I had, just trying to get the numbers to see if the White Death summoning the zombie ratio is equal to the older games. So if I had 24 walker cards, or I had 6 total, yeah, 24 of them, say 3 of them, I had 12 of the runners and 12 of the brutes, which would get me really close to being able to the same amount. It would actually be a little bit more than the 36, but if you only went 2, you'd be a little bit under, so there's no way to get it exact. But you just look at that. It means you'd end up with 24 walkers in the 24, 30, 18, 24, 12, 18, or 6 and 12. So tell me you get total in roughly the same amount we're going to get in the other ones. Yeah, so 24, 18, 6, and 6 for the other ones, or 18, 12, and 12. So you kind of see what you're getting at. So you're getting about 24 in the red, 18 in the medium, in the orange, and then 12 and 6 total if you went through the entire deck. And you only spawned at that one level. Again, you're not going to always spawn at blue all the time, or always red the entire time. But now if we compare this to Black Plague. So in the walkers, you go through the entire deck, you're going to spawn, because they're going to look like, the card's going to look like this is up in the top corner. So again, at red, it's going to say you might get 2 fatties, or they're called brutes now, 5 walkers, 2 runners, and there's a few that have nothing in level blue. But yeah, the next card could instead be walker, walker, runner, brute. They might just be one that's runner, runner, walker, walker. Maybe there's no brutes available. One might have an abomination tossed in there. So out of the 36 cards, there are 2 copies. There are 2 abominations with summon on for each level. So you have a total of 8 cards that'll have abominations on there. But I kind of look at this. It's saying if you overall summon everything. So again, like, you're going to get 24 walkers on easy, 30 on hard. If you summoned 16 of those cards, plus then how many are you get for the runners and all that. But if you look at just the walkers for this 36, you're going to have 96 summons. 72, 48, 24. You're summoning a lot more guys in the older versions. It's very interesting to look at that. You're going to be summoning a lot more total. But one thing to also keep in mind, actually, if we just hop over into just quick, like, Green Horde, it's going to be roughly the same numbers, except for whatever reason, Green Horde, the runners shoot way up, but the brutes and abominations stay the same. But one thing to also keep in mind with this is that you're going to be summoning a lot more guys, but you're also going to be probably running through the deck a lot quicker, because in the older games, Black Plague and Green Horde, you summon every time you open a door. So every time you open the door, you might summon 2 or 3 extra cards. So that's why you're potentially summoning more zombies overall throughout the entire deck, because you're not just summoning once at the end of the round on the spawn points or on, like, the Necromancer or Defiler zones. You're summoning every time you open up a door. So that's going to obviously mean you're going to have to go through the deck more often. So like, here's a breakdown of the cards. I just did this as a very interesting idea. So you're seeing how they're actually summoning in there, because, like, 96 sounds like a lot. But if you look at the walkers, you're summoning 5, 5, 6, and these aren't the exact cards up and down. This is just me putting them in order, like on each one. But yeah, you'd be summoning throughout all the red cards. There'd be a 5, 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 6, 6, 6, 8, 7, 6, 6, 5. So you'd see what you're getting for each one. And then like blue, you're summoning a lot less. And then you kind of see how the runners and the brutes break down. Of course, the abominations are just 1 and 1. So although you are summoning more, you're not overall summoning a crazy amount extra. That's why I did the average. So the average of all these red numbers together, then the blue and orange, they're going to be 6, 5, 3, and 2. For the walker. So that means I did that as an idea of like, so if you wanted to take the original decks and remake them in the 2.0 version, like how close would they be to White Death? Like, would it be worth just using White Death? So if we go 6, 5, 3, and 2, and we jump back over here, there's a spawn at 8, 6, 4, and 2. So 8, 6, 4, and 2. So you're going to get more reds in the newer version. You're on easy mode. You're going to get less red, less yellow, and same blue. So yeah, it's not terribly different. And when I did the averages, I always rounded up regardless. So if it was like 5.5, I obviously rounded up. But if it was like 1.3, I still rounded it up to like 2, just because I wanted to give it the best chance it had. But now if you compare that to the hard mode, where 10, 8, 6, and 4, you're gonna old versions a lot easier then, in general, by summoning everything. But again, you have to also summon these indoors and stuff as well. But even still, so like if you were going to if you wanted to play the older version with the doors, you could always just use the easy mode cards and just stick with them. That way you're not summoning, except for the red, you're not really summoning any harder. And it's the same idea with Silver Debt Runners. It's 3 runners and brutes are 3, 2, and 3, 2, 2, and 1 are your averages. In the older versions. So now if we look at these ones, 8, 6, 4, and 4, 8 is a lot different than 3. You're summoning a lot more runners. 6 is a lot higher than 2. You're summoning a lot more in orange. So the higher levels, even on the easy mode, or easy and hard mode, are the exact same. So you're going to be summoning the same amount. And then it's 2 and 4 for the other one. So 2's about the same, but even on harder, you're going to be summoning more. So I honestly, even though looks like there's a lot more you're summoning in these, I think the White Death is actually going to be a little bit more brutal overall. But at least you have the ability to kind of adjust that difficulty a little bit to your saying. But again, they kind of had to up some of those numbers as well. Like even the 6 and the 8 on the basic one, or the 10 and the 8. Because now if you're not spawning them in every door, they want to make sure the spawn points went up even higher. So I guess it really depends. If you're going to absolutely want to break open the doors to summon stuff, you might want to use the older style. Because then you're summoning less zombies in each room. But if you're just using the spawn points, you can use the White Death one. And you can always even do it if you really wanted to, have both decks sitting around. Have like the old one just for like Black Plague or Green Horde if you want to use that one instead. Just have those 4 doors, right? So you pop one of the doors, you're going to have a little bit less or easier guys. And then use the regular spawn cards for all your big spawn zones. It would be easier to tell exactly what you're spawning in those zones. And then on the outside, you're only going to spawn one type anyhow. Yeah, so kind of interesting to look at some of that. And I we have all the different numbers. And I do the same thing for Green Horde. Again, runners went way up. They got an average of 7 and 5, but the brutes stayed pretty low. Not really sure why they did that as much. But another thing else to keep in mind with Green Horde is they added the Horde rule, which you see on the card up here, these little green hexagons. So every time you summoned one of these orc characters, you also had to add one of that level to the Horde, and then you'd eventually draw a Horde card, which would summon all of them at once from one spawn zone. I kind of wish this is actually just in a general feature overall. I like that as an idea. It's a zombie. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm fighting like 5 or 6 here, but they might suck to us, and you have like just a horde of random every type of zombie coming at you at one spot. that would make a neat thing to just add into the regular version as well. But that might also be just something to take into consideration with some of the little bit higher numbers. It's very interesting to look at, and there's kind of their breakdown if you want to take a look at that at all. Abomination spawn the same, but yeah, as you can see, like all across the board, it's roughly 5, 6s. It averages out, to 6 for walkers, 5, 3, and 2. Which again, if we go back to this 8, 6, 4, and 2, so 8, 6, 4, and 2. So 2 less, so you're gonna summon less walkers, 1 less orange, but you're gonna summon more yellow. It's going to be kind of the same thing. I think these were 8 and 6 for runners. So the brutes go way up, but the runners actually go down a little bit. Or actually, they go up a little bit too, yeah. So you're going to be fighting actually more. So I think White Horde is actually going to make that. But another thing, you got to take these in full context of the entire game situation too. White Horde also adds the battlements in there. The battlement walkways, so that's a way to stop zombies from getting through, so that can help having more guys, even maybe more average guys summoning, because they have ways to like barricade off portions of the map. They added the pole arms, which give you melee out of range. I mean, there's not a ton of them, but there's enough to at least make a difference. They added the guards in there, which also give you extra characters to help fight more zombies off. So they have some of those things. Yeah, like the freeze mechanic came in as well. Again, it's not an everyday thing, but it is something at least taking into consideration, some of those little things. This isn't talking about any of the Internal Empire stuff with the Chi. This is just core White Death. So, so there's a bunch of extra stuff in there. And yeah, Black Plague and Green Horde have their own things, because, you need stuff like that as well, but they're, so they're definitely going to be a little bit interesting. So I could definitely see if someone ever wanted to recreate these cards and you could use these averages. I would almost, again, if you're using the door mechanic, these numbers might be a little bit too high. Versus some of these. Just that -2 is a lot. It's a big difference. Two walkers is a huge difference. But looking at the runners like 3 and 2 versus 6 and 8. Spawning 6 and 8 in a door could be nuts. But spawning them out on the outside of the map where they have to coming at you isn't as bad. There's some other little things to mention as well. These are 3 of the cards. So these are the ones that each have specials. This is another thing just to keep in mind, that they play a little bit different. What is nice is they all share the same back. So if you want to start mixing and matching stuff, you could definitely always just mix these into the game. Obviously the Horde doesn't exist on the newer cards, but it's always 1 at every level. So if I flip back to that card, it's always 1 walker, 1 brute, 1 runner. Depending on what level it is, it doesn't matter. It's always at 1. You just put them off to the side. So you can definitely use that in any game. Black Plague had the double spawn. So what it does is it skips a spawn in whatever zone you do it in, and then the next spawn zone to come up, you draw 2 cards instead. And these could actually trigger multiple times, so if you end up getting too many of them, you can end up getting 2 or 3 in a row, and all of a sudden you have 1 spot that just spawns a ton of stuff. This kind of made the doors a little bit more interesting, because you might have one area that doesn't spawn, then the next door area you open would all of a sudden spawn twice as many guys, which then could be pretty deadly. But yeah, so it kind of gave it a little more risk, but I could also see that's really challenging. And then Zombie Siege for the new one, for White Death, where it just spawns a walker in each corruption zone. So it's only 1 walker, which doesn't sound as bad as the other 2, which have mass numbers, except sometimes the maps have 2 to 3, maybe 4 corruption zones that can also spread, when they start getting the necromancer, start spreading across the zone. So even if you have 2 of them, and they're also taking up 5 zones, now you're summoning 10 guys. Because you're summoning 1 on each different spot. So yeah, so that could be just as bad, except for instead of gathering in 1 spot, they're spread across the map. So, that could also be a pain as well. Plus, they have the ability to climb up walls and stairs and stuff. So, yeah, pretty interesting. You have some different stuff there. I wanted to point this out as well, though. So, in Friends and Foes, we also do have Enter the Horde card as well, which works the same as the other one. This just had tainted zombies in there. but they work the same as the other things. So we had, I think, 2 copies of that. So they did have that mechanic in that step. And then Eternal Empires added a couple other things. So Zombie Siege cards, I showed all 4 different styles because instead of just being walkers, that if you substitute those in there, they have one that spawns 2 walkers, one that spawns a runner, one that spawns a brute. So that could definitely, again, kind of even it out more to like how the double spawn or the horde is, because then you're getting all different types that could potentially spawn instead of just walkers. But I also want to point out the brutes in Eternal Empire also add a warden brute every time you summon them. So they're going to add an additional type. This is also just another, in general, way you could use to like inflate the difficulty if you think the game's getting a little bit too easy. You could take another, if you have another type of runner, or another type of walker, or just other types of brutes from other games, you can always have them summon along with something else. So like when you're summoning the regular orcs, if you're playing with the orcs, you could have them summon one tainted with them every time of that level. I think there's only tainted walkers. But you could also summon like the crossbow walkers, the terracotta walkers, the climber walkers, berserker walkers. With each walker, yeah, it's only one, but if you don't want to include that full set of cards in the game, you can always just include one extra guy to summon, just to add that little bit of extra challenge. So it could be very interesting. Speaking of those guys, I did want to show off their cards as well. So like for White Death, they have the easier mode. So they have easy and hard cards. So we have a total of 12. There's six of the berserkers, 6 of the climbers of each, 3 of each of the deadbolt walkers, and terracotta only have 6 because all of their 6 cards are the exact same. But you see, these also have the different. They have the 8, 6, 4, and 2, or 10, 8, 6, and 4. They have same numbers on both. They're a little bit higher than the regular spawns, but there aren't as many of them in there. Now, again, when you're adding these into the game, you can just shuffle these right in if you want. Every time you add more different types to the game, it's also going to spread out the other cards as well. Like, so if you add 12 berserker walkers to the game, now you're going from 56 cards up to 68 cards. So you're gonna have less of a chance of drawing you're gonna lessen your chance of drawing the necromancers or the abominations or the extra activation cards and stuff like that. And if you took all of these and threw them in there, you're gonna do that as well. You're gonna dim out the other normal guys a little bit more, because you might be drawing these guys a little bit more often. And that involves any of the different ones, because we have some for all the different other sets. I looked through all of them. So we have friends or foes. So here's the number breakdown for them. So you guys have tainted walkers, which are poisoned. They have a special ability that when you defeat them, they blow up. If you defeat them with a melee, whenever they die, they shoot out poison. So it adds a little extra harm to them. So if you melee attack them, especially. But they had all their numbers at different things, and occasionally they'll summon a abomination. So 4 of their cards summon abominations. Out of, I think there's 12 of them. I might be wrong. I forgot to write down the number, apparently. But yeah, you can see our breakdown. We get 48, 36, 24, 13. But again, the numbers, we start breaking down, the averages are 5, 3, 3, and 2. So that's actually, again, it's less than the regular ones, but it's not bad for a special. But if we compare it to like these guys, which are the other special ones, they're less than the easy modes. So 5, 3, 3, and 2 is for 4, 6, 8, and 2. So actually, it's, again, the older sets have more cards generally than some of these other. The new set has, the old sets have more cards than the new ones, but their numbers are a lot less because, again, you might spawn them indoors. And you can even see on some of them, like look at their numbers on the bottom down here, like on red, for example. You might get 2 or 3 of these guys spawning, but you could get 6, 8, or 7. They're big, giant numbers. Even in orange, you could get 5s, some 4s, some 6s, but you might get 1s or 2s. Really, blue is the only one where you're kind of safe. But if you're in blue level, you might get an abomination. So that could definitely be bad. I think there's 1 at each level for the abomination. Yeah, cool. Alright, so then we have Spectral Walkers, which have 12. We have NPC, or Notorious Plague characters, which are special walkers that just are basically alternate scopes, but then they had an ability, like if you defeated so many, you could get a vault weapon by collecting them, by hunting down these alternate art ones. But it's just they have an extra way to spawn them guys as well. But you can see again, their numbers, even for both of these, is Spectral Walkers are ghosts that have special extra abilities. I'm not going to go into too much on all these. But you can see how they kind of break down. They have a lot more numbers again overall. 49, 72, which is different than if I flip all the way back to these guys where they were 24s and 30s, right? So there's almost twice as many summoning through their entire set of cards then there are them. Again, those numbers, those are times 3. These are like times 2. So if we just we went back to that. Sorry for all the flipping here. Yeah, so if we did the easy times 2, that's 16 or 20, right? For the walkers. Versus one of these guys summoning at... they have 49. So 16 or 20 to 49 or 72. If you went through the entire set of 12 cards, you're going to summon a lot. You're going to summon a lot more overall. But like your average again, if you just looked at the average of each one, if they went down and did the broke them down like that, you're actually summoning less each time. Just you'd be summoning more of them overall. It's a very interesting kind of breakdown. Just some interesting knowledge. The Zombie Wolves Invasion have their cards, and they have, again, little low averages, but these guys are kind of like super runners. They have 3 movement. The Murder of Crows, which is the only set, one of the few sets I don't own for spawns, and the Swarm of Rats are actually kind of special because they have the exact same cards in every one. So they play like the new ones. So they're 5, 4, 3, and 2. So they're a little bit more in line with the easy mode, right? Which was 8, 6, 4, and 2. A little bit less. But again, they have special abilities versus the walkers, right? Rats can swarm together and crows can do stuff together. So that's why they want to spawn a little bit less, because otherwise they might be too abusive. Plus, again, doors, stuff like that. Then the last one we had for this was the Foot Ninja from White Death, which has 4, 3, 2, 1. So they actually, again, spawn. They spawn less than a standard zombie. But they have special abilities too. So they kind of offset that. You get a special ability, you spawn less. Because I don't want you to have to deal with that too terribly much. So that's really cool. So, yeah, just an interesting thing to look at is that is one deck, is Black Plague, Green Horde, or White Death, is one better than the other? It kind of really depends on what mode you're playing. I feel like I personally would probably just like from now on, every time I play, I'd probably just use the White Death, and I can summon if I want to summon the orcs, or if I want to play something else. It doesn't matter if I want to play with one of the other styles. I would just probably use that deck because I like the idea of just being able to flip to a card like the Split Ninja, you know exactly what type I'm summoning, exactly what number in big bold print, versus having to like look at some of these, like more, all of these are the same, but look at these things where I have to start trying to figure out, let me get back on this, try and look at which symbol or read the name. I think it just makes it a little bit quicker. Like if you want to use the Horde walkers, the orcs, and use the Horde, just add the extra Horde thing in there. It's not that hard. You want to use the peasant guys from Black Plague, use the peasant looking ones. You want to use the more soldier ones from White Death, use the soldiers from White Death. You know, whatever model you use, or just mix and match, it doesn't matter, because all 3 of them, outside of the Horde mechanic, all play the exact same. The only ones that are different start becoming the, like, Tainted, or all the other special ones, which we've seen, which they have their own special cards anyhow. So it's not a big deal there. Alright, so the last thing I wanted to go over, just another comparison for this, was the equipment cards. And I didn't do a full type up on as individual this, but I just want to kind of look at what was different for each one, or kind of like what was the same rather. So for all 3 sets, now as a note for context here, I own all 3 core sets, all 3 Kickstarter exclusive boxes for all of them. I own everything from White Death. For Green Horde and Black Plague, the only things I am missing, for the most part, I'm not going to break down everything, is I am missing mainly the guest sets. So there might be a couple of vault weapons in there I'm missing, but mostly that's survivors with a couple of necromancers. There might be like 1 or 2 items, equipment in there. I know I'm missing 1 Ice Blast promo card, vault weapon, and then I am missing like the NPC set 2, the Walker set 2, the hero box, the extra hero box, and like a couple other like survivor or abomination boxes, but none of that stuff should have any other equipment in it, and if they do, they would only be extra Volk equipment. So I should have all the core main sets, with the only other exception being a couple crossovers, like Besieged had a crossover set, and there might have been one other game that had one as well. I can't think of right now. But if they had anything, I am potentially missing any starter cards or any special things they might have had for those as well. But otherwise, I have all the main retail and Kickstarter stuff other than mainly the special guest boxes are the big thing I'm missing. So out of all the sets, for all 3 sets, there are 22 melee weapons with at least 2 copies. So, including starting equipment. And I put it like that because there are some cards like daggers, short swords, even like in ranged weapons. You have some of the bows, some of the armors that are in all 3 sets or in 2 of the sets because they just carried over. So there might be 2 copies in Black Plague, 2 copies in Green Horde, or 2 copies in White Death. Now I also put starting equipment because there's a couple of equipment that there's like 1 equipment to starting equipment. There's like a Warhammer. I think there's like 1 of the katanas. There's some of the items that are. There's 1 that was a starting equipment just to give you a little bit of a difference. Then they have a second one in the actual item deck. So I just included it as being at least 2 copies because you could get 2 copies of it overall, and then you could just opt to not include both of them. So if there's 6 short swords, 2 for each set, just put 2 in your deck if you want to mix them together. There are 10 unique weapons that only have 1 copy. So it's actually not too bad for just melee weapons. And then there are 13 that are crossover TMNT Thundercats. Now, except for 1 of these items, which I think is Panthro's Nunchucks, they are all unique items. But I didn't put them with the unique because generally the game states you're only supposed to use them with those characters. There's no reason why you couldn't use them with other characters if you really wanted to. But I just wanted to kind of add that in there. They're extra items. And then, like, I know the turtle ones have flip over card abilities and stuff like that too. But so then range, there are 9 with at least 2 copies, including starting equipment. There are only 2 unique ones though. So that's kind of interesting to look at. Is there are a total, not including the turtle crossover ones, but just all the rest of them. There are 32 melee weapons. There are only 11 ranged weapons. So it kind of shows their focus on they wanted you to do more range, or more melee than range, which is a very interesting thing to look at. There's also plenty of bolts and plenty of arrows from Black Plague and Green Horde that are not used with White Death equipment anymore because they got rid of the bolt and arrow keywords. They just wanted you to be able to use your weapons without, if I want to have this extra reroll card, it's kind of neat, but then they have to find a specific weapon for it. I think they're just trying to, again, make the game a little bit simpler. Much in the same way, they got rid of the door mechanic, so none of the new White Death cards have the door symbol on them anymore to say whether they can open a door or not. So if you're trying to mix White Death stuff in with Black Plague and Green Horde for some of the equipment that's only in that version, you're not going to have that as a symbol, so you have to either just kind of decide on your own on what to do with that. For combat spells, there are 11 with at least 2 copies. There are no unique ones. So everything, some of them are like one in the starting, one and not, but there are only 11 of them. So that's the same number as there are for ranged weapons. So I guess if you combine ranged and then combat as being ranged attacks, then it brings it up to that 22, which is, almost closer to the melee. They still have their 10 unique, but at least it brings the numbers a little bit closer for overall ranged attacks. There are 5 crossover thunder attacks and TMNT, but those things are kind of funny because one of them is April's Harp. Then the other 4 are the combat scrolls for Cat and Kit for thunder attacks, and they have 4 copies. They each have 2 copies of the same spell. So technically, you can even say there's only 1 unique out of that, but I put that there are 5 because of just the way they're being played. Then for enchantments, which I thought this is actually kind of interesting, there are only 3 with unique 2 copies. And then there's 8 of them that are unique, but 1 of them is a starting equipment, which I think is from White Death. But yeah, it's very interesting. There's a lot of unique enchantments. You're going to have 1 copy, but then there's only 3 that only have 2. So very just interesting information there. Now if we look at some of the other stuff, we have armor. So there's only 4 armor that have at least 2. There's at least one. There's 1 that's unique to the familiars from Friends and Foe for horse armor. Although it can be used, it's called animal armor, I think. And there's 1 crossover Thundercats, which is Lionel's glove. So interesting there. So there's not a lot of armor in the game, really, to think about. There's only 4, so that means, again, if you only put 2 copies of each, there'd only be 8 armor total in the entire deck. And then, that's just armor. That could be, and then shields. There's 3 of them, and there's only 1 unique. I did want to note with the armor, though, in White Death, I can't remember the name of it, there's 1 type of armor that has the exact same stats as one of the ones from the other games, but it has a different name. All the other ones generally have different stats and different things, or if any weapon crossed over had the same name, it has the same stats, but there's 1 armor that has the exact same stats with different names, so I counted it as 2 different items, just because of the fact that it has a different name. It's a different style of armor. Then for item cards, there's only 1 card with 2 copies, and that's Plague Mask. There's not a lot of general items, though. There are 2 unique items, the Holy Orb of Death and the Magic Ball of Destiny, which are like Kickstarter items for all these. But there's a lot of waters, apples, Selka meats, Dragon Balls, and torches, which there's like 2 to 4 in every single set, so you get a bunch of them. And then there's also 6 unique familiars. So that's pretty cool there, so you can get those. I also do want to note, though, for Eternal Empires, they swapped 3 melee and 1 combat spells out with the other ones. There's actually technically 4 new items that are only in Eternal Empires, but the issue is they have a different back. I know, although every single item in there is technically different as well, because they have the chi mechanic and the lock symbol, but someone might be like, I don't care, I'm not playing with that, but it kind of sucks that there's 4 items that are not available elsewhere. Because they have a different back, so unless you slid another card behind it with how many apples and salted meats and stuff you have, you could definitely afford to slide, 4 or 6 different cards, like, I think there's 2 of each of them, so it'd be like 8 different cards. You could slide another card in the back if you want to hide that back, or just mix them in and who cares. But yeah, I just wanted to note that. So that was someone's like, oh, it sucks you can't mix them together. But realistically, if you have, when you have White Death, all but 4 different cards, so 8 different total with 2 copies of each, are the exact same as the White Death starting deck. And it has other cards that are in place of them as well. So it's not like it's short 8 cards. So you're not missing out a lot by not mixing them together for that reason. Alright, then the last thing we kind of want to look at were Vulk weapons and equipment. So this combines all of them. Again, I might be missing some from some subsets or so, but I counted from what I have as a total of 33 of them, which is pretty crazy. So there are 9 melee weapons, 5 ranged weapons. There are 4 of them that are melee/ranged weapons, which have both. Now there's a couple of the other items I didn't look at, like 1 or 2 that are melee and ranged in the regular sets, but I didn't really mention that because it's not, I think it's like one or 2 items. There's also 1 copy of a melee armor, but I have 2 copies of that. It's the only vault weapon that I have 2 copies of. And I don't think I bought anything twice, so unless I just got an error somewhere. There are 3 combat spells and 1 enchantment. There's 1 armor, 1 shield. Yeah, so not a lot of stuff. So a lot of weapons, of course, not a lot of the other things. There is 1 melee shield set that has 2 items. So one card's a melee weapon, one's a shield, and it's a set. They were a Dice Tower promo. You can use either of them separate, but they gain a bonus if they're set together. And there's the 4 armor from White Death, which again can all be used separately, but if you have them together, they have a special ability. So I kind of just put those guys off to a little separate thing, because if you don't include both in your decks, then, you can still definitely use all of them, but they're not going to be as effective. And then there's only 1 item that is a bulk item, and that's actually from the Iron Maiden set. And I just want to note this, also note that some of these melee weapons, ranged weapons and stuff like these, some of these items, are from crossovers like Iron Maiden. I didn't put that as a separate thing like I did the Ninja Turtle Thundercats, only because the rules for the Ninja Turtles Thundercats say you're supposed to only use them with their weapons, or if you play them characters, they start with their weapons. The Iron Maiden ones don't do that. They're like, hey, here's just some neat weapons that kind of theme with the Iron Maiden stuff, like Reaper's Sword and stuff like that. But yeah, there's 33 different vault weapons, which I think is really cool. So if you kind of break that down roughly evenly, I know it's not directly, you can almost say there's like 11 from each set. But again, I think it's probably more about there's like five or six in each set, like core set, plus then you get more of them from Kickstarter stuff and promos and things like that. But it's interesting. You have 33 full in a deck. You can sort of, again, you could pull some out if you don't want to use 1 or 2. You could drop this down. But having that many to go through, especially with the new White Death rules, where every time you defeat a Necromancer or an Abomination, they drop a Vault weapon. Plus, if you're playing Eternal Empires with the campaign, there's a lot of the campaign cards that get you Vault weapons. So having a bigger deck of Vault weapons could be kind of fun to give you more options throughout the game. And then if you're making your own custom stuff, utilize some of those things together. Also use the vault rooms from Black Plague and Green Horde, and you have another room you can go check if you want to. They got rid of that and went for the Abomination Necromancer. I think again they're trying to focus on making the game more streamlined, so you're focusing on taking out the zombies or completing your missions, not running to some side room. But some people might like that as just an extra additional thing. Like, hey, I have a little bit of free extra time, zombies or my team's doing something, maybe I can rush over and grab something. Or we're having trouble with the zombies, we might need to run over and get this rather than trying to, so we can't defeat them. So that could be an extra thing as well. So very cool. That is what I have for Zombicide. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope it was informative. If you'd like to see more videos like this where I break down information on games and cards in the games and stuff, let me know. I've been thinking about doing something like this with like possibly like maybe Marvel Champions or Power Rangers, Heroes of the Grid, stuff like that. Just looking at different characters, different teams. So yeah, just something you find interesting, let me know, and I will try and make more videos like this. See you guys later. Bye.